Hello, Stellar people, and welcome to the Art Bootcamp for Friday, the 24th of January. And so, my art YouTube workout buddy, we're going to continue with the final day of this week of the Art Bootcamp. So, let's take a look at the schedule. Friday, 24th, where we will do shapes, heads and hands. We will map the anatomy to the mannequin while do some simple shapes. So let's get to work. So first, we always start off with the simple shapes. I think I want to do it in red today. Simple shapes, new layer, and B for the brush tool. Size that. That's not red. Right. So again, we warm up with some basic shapes. Trying to get loose and limber, and these are not great. But we don't need to be great. Just need to be consistent. Correct? Correct. Although being great would be nice. Being great would be really, really nice. A straight line, I could hold the shift and yeah, that always works for making straight lines. But we're not here to cheat. We're here to actually do it by hand. Maybe this is too bright. Too bright of a red. We knock that down a bit. Maybe an orangey red. There you go. So again, we're trying to build habits. Because if we do this over a long enough amount of time, we will get at least a little better, right? What is it saying? Get it 1% better every day. And over time, it'll just compound. So we're working out. Hopefully you've made your own workout program, but we're in this together, right? And so after simple shapes, let's do some 3D shapes, which is the cube, the cylinder, cone, pyramid, and sphere, which is the 3D versions of some of the more simpler ones like the circle, square, triangle, rectangle, and new layer. Let's go. B for the brush tool, and those slightly more complex shapes have more dimensionality because they are forms in space. They have different multiple sides that you can hit with light, and that light will define the space. So if we hit it from the top, the four sides will be less illuminated. Right? We hit it directly on top, less illuminated. And the bottom would be even less so. Art is fantastic. And that there's all this moving bits and bobs, this simple complexity, if you will, where you can build anything from simple and complex shapes if you combine them, morph them into each other, if you learn control of space and time. No, more or less it's just fun. That's all really I need to draw, is that it's fun. And ever since I was young, I just wanted to learn how to get better at art so that I can better fulfill some of the ideas and concepts that I had. I haven't always liked, but I like comic books and video games. And when I was younger, I would just draw them and wonder, how did they get so good? And when can I get that good? And this is what I'm doing to try to get to those levels, where one day what I see in my mind I can fully translate to paper. But I think there will always be new horizons that one can try to get better at, to make better things. So it never ends. And that's kind of cool. Sphere. And a sphere is an object in space so that it's hit by light, highlight, right? Hit by light, highlight would be here, and then it would have, and then a cast shadow in this very bright orange. And now that we have warmed our hands up and we're ready to take on something like heads and hands. So let's go. Okay, so now we have heads and hands. We start with the skeleton Horatio, well, the skull, and we're going to do profiles today. Profiles are used a fair amount in art, but usually the face is fairly static, right? Emotionless. Maybe there's a smile, maybe there's a frown, but usually we show more emotion from the front angles. But for this profile view, we have, of course, this large circle for the cranium. This is where your brain is housed. And a brain is very, very important. So we have this big old circle taking up most of your skull. Your spine would be at the base of the skull, down. But from the profile view, it's fairly simple to make a line down to the chin. And this is the mandible that attaches to your skull proper with muscles, and it helps you chew, speak, open, close your mouth. And then the hairline would be somewhere up top. Your brow ridge would be about here. Your eyes would be within your skull, but they're right up here. The bottom of your nose is here. Your mouth is here. And usually the eyes sit just a little higher than the middle, but from the eye to the chin, and between that is your nose. And between the nose and the chin is usually your mouth. But there's great amount of variation in human beings. But at the base of the skull, there's a spine. But yeah, it's not super complex. And that's why I like to do profile view. But let's do another one. Let's do the opposite view. Profile the opposite way. And it's very much a mirror of itself, right? So again, circle or oval, which is just a modified circle. And that contains your cranium, your brain, sorry. And then we come down for the chin. That's the front of your face. And the mandible. Your spine will be at the base of the skull. Hairline near the top. The brow ridge, where your eyebrows sit. Your eyeballs are in the socket. The bottom of your nose, another unit of measurement. Your mouth. And it also helps if I do a side plane. A side plane. It goes around the zygomatic arch, which is where your eyeballs kept. And then down towards the chin. All right, so now if you're being hit in the full face with some light, the two sides will be less illuminated and the back would be even more shadowy than that, or less illuminated. And that is the profile. But let's do an actual face. If I could. There we go. My skull wrapped with flesh. That's a weird way to say it. And so, again, we got the cranium, just a circle. My actual face, down to the chin. The mandible comes up, and usually it connects to the ear. with the fleshy bit. This is all cartilage. Your nose is cartilage. But the mandible goes right into that. So we got the hairline near the top, brow ridge, my eyeballs sitting within my eye socket, bottom of the nose, another unit of measurement. And usually your ears are between the brow ridge and the nose. Some ears are higher, some are at an angle, some have an elvish slight tip, some have larger earlobes. There's a lot of variations that can happen within the face. And the mouth line. My spine is at the base of my skull. See, it's not bad, not bad. Let's do the other side. Layer, the circle. Extend that out towards the chin, the mandible, and it comes up towards the ear, hairline, brow ridge, eye line, nose line, mouth line. And we can see some things. Right? That between the eye and the bottom of the nose, ear, the mandible goes into the ear. But yeah, these standard measurements are usually uniform for most heads. There's just shifts and variations for various human beings. But yeah, the profile. And that was the heads. So let's do some hands. So the hand today, open palm, fingers splayed. Let's go. It's like I'm giving an electronic pulse, or shooting a blast. Let's go back. V4 to knock it back to 40% opacity. We can draw on top of it. So first off, I usually make a simple shapes or complex shapes. B for brush tool. So I see a squashed or flattened box. So give it a side plane so we know where the light is hitting, and the fingers are radiating off of this flattened box. We have the thumb within this total shape. And then we have the fingers, index, middle, the ring finger, and the pinky. Pinky's out because we're fancy. And that is the hand. And anytime I need reference for different, like a subtle hand position that I'm drawing, that I want to be part of an illustration, I can always take a picture of my hand and then work on it, right? And that was head and hands. Nicely. All right, so before we go on to the anatomy portion, let's look at the simple human form. Usually when I start off drawing, it's usually just a rough sketch. Right? I'm not taking too much time to, make a very structurally sound person. I'm just sketching, doodling, moving all over, and just trying to get the basic idea out. But for the breakdown of a human being, this is a simple human with simple shapes, a circle for the head, just for placement, usually. A modified circle, an egg shape for the rib cage, and a box for the hips. The joints are circles, and then the limbs are just straight lines. And that is a simple version of the human form. A step up from that is, again, the simple circle for the head, and you can flesh that out, making that an oval, a neck, an egg shape for the rib cage, box for the hips, circles for the joints, shoulders, elbows, wrists, ankles, knees, And then cylinders comprise the limbs. And that's just a step up. And then we can continue on and flesh that out much more, right? It's all a process. Try to go from simple to more complex. So let's look at some anatomy. We're going to go top to bottom. Top to bottom, these are the basic muscles that I've delineated for this session. They're mostly the ones that can be seen on a well-defined form, a person that, say, works out. And we start at the top with the trapezius, which is an upper shoulder muscle, and it's along the back and kind of makes a diamond shape. Along the back, we have the clavicle that it's attached to, and that moves into the deltoid, which is your shoulder. Your upper arm, we have the tricep on the back of the upper arm. And then from back to front, it's the tricep, the brachialis, which is in green, and the bicep in purple. So front to back is bicep, brachialis, and tricep on the back. The brachioradialis is this gold one. It comes from the lower upper arm, goes from the outside and goes in towards the thumb. And then there's extensors and flexor muscles, just bundles of muscles in your forearm that you can see and feel as you flex your fingers, move your hands in various positions. Extensors and flexors. On the trunk, we have the pectoralis, a large flat muscle in the front, goes along the clavicle, the sternum, along the upper rib cage, and goes into your upper arm. We have the latissimus dorsi that wraps around from the back to your side. The external obliques are your love handles from the lower part of your trunk to your pelvis. It attaches. The love handles. The rectus abdominis, the upper and lower. Upper is mostly the six pack. The lower goes below the belly button. You see the division, and it goes down into the groin area. The gracilis is an inner thigh muscle. The adductor longus underneath that. We have the sartorius, which comes from the outer hip, right? And it comes inwards to the inside of your knee. So from the outer hip, inside of your knee, sartorius. The rectus femoris is in the middle of your thigh. The vastus lateralis is on the outside of your thigh. We have the patella, which is your kneecap, and the patellar tendon attaches from the kneecap, goes down towards your ankle. The gastrocnemius, or your calf muscle, is mostly seen on the inside of your lower leg. Also, it's on the back, but it's covered by these other muscles that are seen from the front. But to the right, his left, my right, is of the patellar tendon is the anterior tibialis in purple. Then on this gold one on the outside of the lower leg is the fibularis longus. All right, there are two major bones in your lower leg, the tibia, which is the thicker one, and then the fibula on the outer side of the lower leg. So anterior tibialis attaching, and the fibularis longus on the outer side. And then between the two is the extensor digitorum longus, between the anterior tibialis and the fibularis longus on the outside. And those are the muscles that I choose to study for my simple anatomy review. So now let's look at some mannequins and map some things. So here we have the mannequin. And first, let's let's work them out using simple shapes. Let's knock them back a little bit. V 70, V 70% for 7% opacity. That new layer. B for the brush tool. So again, the circle for the main part of the skull. Right, we can extend that down if we need to. The mandible. Just make it a line to indicate where your spine is. The modified circle or the egg shape for the rib cage. We have a box for the hip, and this is his major weight carrying leg, right? Contrapposto. You can see this S curve. There's swoosh, swoosh. So he's supporting himself mostly with his left leg. And we can see a side plane here because of the light. This is why I like working with mannequins, is that it's usually being hit by light. And the light helps us define where side planes are. So this is a tilted box. And then simple shapes for shoulders, elbows, wrists, knees, ankles. And then cylinders for the limbs. And this is a great way to pose your characters. Just making very not really structured, quick versions like this, because we understand what's going on. Now let's map on some muscles. Maybe that looks a bit too bright. Too bright of an orange, so it's not that. Okay, new layer. And now we're going to do some muscles. Map some muscle on this man. So again, circle for the head. Comes down for the mandible. That center line, a side plane, is hairline, eyebrow ridge, eye line, nose line, mouth line, approximately. He's got a neck that goes into his trapezius. All right, the clavicle is here. The sternum is here. And so we have the deltoid coming from the clavicle, and it goes that. The pectoralis goes along the clavicle on top, sternum, along the rib cage, and goes and tucks into the arm. Again, clavicle, sternum, along the rib cage, your upper part of the rib cage, up and in, tucks into your upper arm. You have the front to back. We have the bicep, the brachialis, and the tricep on the back. Again, the bicep, brachialis, and the tricep on the back. We have the brachioradialis that comes from the lower part of your upper arm. On the outside, it comes inwards towards the thumb. On the outside, towards the inside. And extensors and flexors of your forearm help you move your fingers and hand. Again, to the trunk, we have the latissimus dorsi on the back. It's about here, right? It wraps. The serratus anterior is a lightning bolt shaped muscle that goes along the rib cage. Or to me, it simulates a rib cage, which is kind of cool. Rectus abdominis, the six pack. And it about ends, there's the belly button. Upper, the lower, goes and tucks into your pubic. We have the external obliques, the love handles. We have the gracilis of your inner thigh. We have the adductor longus, cuts across underneath that. The sartorius comes from the outside of your hip, comes inside of your thigh and comes towards your kneecap. So from the outside, cuts across to the inside of your thigh. Swoosh. Then we have the rectus femoris. Rectus femoris in the center of your thigh. And the vastus lateralis on the outside. The patella is the kneecap. The patellar tendon comes from the kneecap and goes towards your ankles. The tibula and fibula, tib-fib, are the bones underneath. And we have on the inside the gastrocnemius, or the calf muscle, mostly seen on the inside. Just on the outer side of the patellar tendon, we have the anterior tibialis. Anterior tibialis. On the outside of your lower leg is the fibularis longus. Fibularis longus, also called the peroneus. And between the two, between the anterior tibialis and the fibularis longus, is the extensor digitorum longus. Extensor digitorum longus. And that are some of the muscle mapping on this mannequin. And nicely done. Now let's do a statues. Yep. If I turn that off, okay. So here we have another David. Yes, another David. There are a lot of Davids. And this David is done by Donatello, one of the Ninja Turtles. This David is in bronze, and this is after the David that slew Goliath. This is Goliath's head, the giant. This is pretty gruesome, if you think about it, but very famous. And so now let's map this David by Donatello. The 70, let's do 40, 50. 50% opacity, new layer. Again, let's do some simple. Okay, so a circle for the head, just for the placement. Comes down towards the chin to make an oval shape. All right, we got the mandible. His ears about here. His hairline we can't see, but it's about here. His brow ridge about here. Eye line about here. Nose about here. Mouth about here. A bit of a side plane, as there's this shine. He's got the neck. A modified circle or an oval egg shape for the rib cage. His shoulders are circles. His hips are a box. You can see that, right? That box shape. And again, he's being hit by light. So we see this whole side plane. And that's what I'm going with. He's got that contrapposto, that S curve, swoosh, swoosh. It feels better. Again, shoulders, circles, elbows, circles, wrists, circles, knees, circles, ankles here. And then his limbs are cylinders. Cylinders for limbs. We're just doing this as practice. Nothing too involved, nothing too strenuous. We're trying to get back into the flow. Turn that. And that is the pose of Donatello's David. Now let's map some muscles. To David. Again, circle for the head. Extend that out to an oval. There's the center line. The side plane. Let's correct some of that. Okay. Hairline. Eyebrows. Eyes. Nose. Mouth. The neck. That goes into the trapezius. We have that modified egg shape. Well, modified circle, egg shape. for the rib cage, clavicle about here, and the sternum here, and along that, like the clavicle, sternum, you see his pecs coming and wrapping to the arm. Clavicle, sternum, wrapping around, along the rib cage, and into the arm. Deltoid. We have the bicep, brachialis. Brachialis we can't quite see, and a tricep on the back of this forearm. Now bicep, brachialis, tricep along the back. We have the brachioradialis coming from the lower part of the upper arm. It comes inside towards the thumb. Right? Outside and then in towards the thumb. We have the latissimus dorsi wrapping around the back. The external obliques, love handles. That box again for the hips in the contrapposto pose, so that we know where his weight is distributed mostly on this leg. As his other legs on Goliath's head, it gives it that nice swoosh, that S curve. Just makes it more dynamic. Okay, I'm throwing myself off. Okay, so we have the rectus abdominis, the six-pack, upper belly button. The lower goes into the groin area. Serratus anterior. Always looks like thunderbolts to me, so I always do that. What else? In the lower area, we have the gracilis, which is the inside of your calf. Inside of your thigh. We'll get there, Trey. Okay. We have the adductor longus coming towards the inside. It's the sartorius coming from the hip, right? Comes from the outside of the hip, comes cross, inside, goes cross, inside, towards the inside of the knee. So again, comes across and then towards the inside. And that is the sartorius. Then we have the rectus femoris in the middle of your thigh. We have the vastus lateralis. The vastus lateralis on the outside of your thigh. The patella, your kneecap. And the patellar tendon is from the kneecap down towards the ankle. Kneecap down towards the ankle. The gastrocnemius is on the inside of your calf or lower leg. We have the just outside of the patellar tendon is the anterior tibialis. Anterior tibialis. And on the very outside of the lower leg is the fibularis longus. Fibularis longus. And between the two of the anterior tibialis and the fibularis longus, also called the peroneus, between those two is the extensor digitorum longus. Extensor digitorum longus. And that is Donatello's David with muscle mapping. And this is one of the, well, I wouldn't say the easiest. It depends on who you are. I found this one of the best ways to learn how to learn the muscles. If I had a visual example that I can draw on top of to map things onto other things so that I can get an idea. Oh, okay. So that's right. And statues are great because they're idealized forms of humans. Right? They have the muscle definition of somebody that works out pretty frequently, which helped me get this down. And hopefully it will help you. So is that? Did we do it? Did we do it? I think we did it. So for today, Friday the 24th, we did shapes, heads and hands, anatomy, and then we mapped anatomy to the mannequin and also the statues. Nicely done. And that was the last one of this week. Now next week, step it up just a little bit. Just a little bit. So on Monday, we're starting about the same program, right? We got shapes, heads and hands, anatomy, mannequin, sculpture, and also some gestures. Some simple gestures, like running poses, jumping poses, stuff like that. And that'll be next week. So thank you for joining me. I have been Trey. You can find my work at treyhodges.com. Power to the creator. Take care. Enjoy the weekend. And I'll see you on Monday. Bye-bye.